Hello, and welcome to GovCon Biz Podcast, where I share my experiences with government contracting. My name's Linda Rawson, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Nicole Toomey Davis. We are going to be talking about the SBIR and STTR programs and what they mean to you as a government contractor. And with that, let's hear from you, Nicole.
Linda, thanks so much for having me on today. And I have to give you a hard time because I can tell that you are a DoD contractor because SBIR is the way DoD contractors say SBIR. And so if you hear me say it SBIR, that's because all the other agencies say it that way.
Yes. Yeah, I do. And I'm also a country bumpkin, so there could be a little bit of that too.
No, the truth is that DoD always says SBIR, and DoD is half the whole program, so they get to say it the way they want to.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I have an engineering undergraduate degree from BYU, and then I went to Stanford to do my MBA, went to the big West Coast to do my MBA there, and I've been in tech since I was 17 years old. And my current company, Enclavix, is an AI software company. And I'm a big believer in the SBIR or SBIR program because Enclavix was funded over $1.2 million from the National Science Foundation SBIR program. We wanted to create technology to help entrepreneurs. So we're serial entrepreneurs. We've done a bunch of stuff. We raised capital from angels and VCs, and we sold our last company, my partner and I, he's also my husband, he's our chief technology officer, and we wanted to help entrepreneurs, just believe in entrepreneurship. And we wanted to use AI to help curate resources to help entrepreneurs. And so we used SBIR money from NSF to create a library. We use AI to create this library and believe in it tons. And if entrepreneurs go to VentureWrench.com, to our website, they can click on library, and it's free because NSF funded that. And we're really proud of that. And we have content we've put around it, including some online courses and resources. And one thing that came out of that, as you know, is some courses we've created to help other entrepreneurs use SBIR to fund their businesses, their vision, their deep technology, because it's a really powerful tool to fund technology that maybe the private sector won't fund.
Great. That's good. That's really good information. And it's really important to know that you were successful at SBIRs, right?
Yeah. It's actually pretty interesting because in the private sector, if you're going to raise venture capital, maybe only 3% of entrepreneurs get venture capital, and that's not very many. And maybe a little bit more than that get angel capital funding from angel investors. But the success rate with SBIR funding or SBIR funding is more like 15%. So that's actually a pretty high success rate. So the entrepreneurs who put in a proposal, about 1 in 6 actually get money. And then about half of those get the second phase of funding, which can be up to $2 million. And they don't have to give up any equity. They don't have to give up any shares of their company. They own the whole thing when they're done. So I've raised from investors and I've raised from the SBIR program. And I tell entrepreneurs it doesn't really take longer. It's not really harder or more complex. It's just, and you own your company when you're done. It's pretty powerful stuff. But it has to be deep technology, right? It's not apps, it's not simple, right? It's deep. But if you have deep ideas, and it's really great.
And the National Science Foundation, NSF, also has a way for you to test your idea now, right?
They do. Yeah, they do. They have really adopted, it's really coming out of the lean startup model, and they actually really require entrepreneurs to pursue that. And some of the other agencies have hopped on as well and are really providing ways for entrepreneurs to and really emphasizing the customer side, talking to customers. I call it does anybody care, or do the dogs want to eat the dog food? And so it's really strengthening. It's strengthening entrepreneurs. It's strengthening their connection to customers. It's really great. It's really fantastic.
And I feel like that kind of program, instead of writing a 15-page proposal with 25 letters of support and daunting, right? That kind of program tests your target market, tests your idea, tests your niche, because you only submit like a 2-page executive summary kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I actually was talking to one of the senior program managers just about 3 weeks ago at NSF, and this new model at NSF where you submit it's like 3 pages long. They do a quick review. Now, it's interesting. He told me that NSF rules do not permit them to do, he called it a mini review. They're not allowed to do that. They're allowed to look at it, and they're allowed to gauge whether it completely is not even within the framework of NSF. And he said about 25% of those 3-page summaries do not get an invitation to apply. But what was pretty interesting is that of the rest, a pretty big chunk, about half, don't even bother to apply. So they get an invitation, but they don't apply. And isn't that amazing? I know it's amazing. And I expressed my surprise. I'm like, you get an invitation to apply and then you don't? And he said, well, as you know, a full proposal is a lot of work. It is a lot of work. And so people are kind of, I guess, testing the waters and then decide, I don't want to do a whole proposal. So it looks like they are actually getting about the same number of full proposals as they were before. They're kind of on, this is the first full year. They're just about to end the first full year. So it's kind of interesting. But people with just kind of frivolous ideas are getting weeded out, not wasting their time.
Right. And I know that is such an improvement over the past.
Yeah. So anyway, and it's interesting because DoD is the biggest of all the players. They have the biggest budget, but they also do often have the very specific topics, right? Because historically, DoD SBIR program has been part of their procurement. Now it's interesting. I've had about 9 conversations in the last little while with technical points of contact and senior SBIR folks individually, and it does look like it's changing a little bit at DoD. That SBIR is not it doesn't automatically lead, if you will, to a one-on-one contract, after phase 1 and phase 2, but still the need is still bubbling up from kind of a procurement perspective inside DoD. So it is still all of DoD. So that includes so you bubble everybody up together. They are often run separately, right? So Army has its own, Navy has its own, DARPA has its own, right? But if you add them all up, they're about half of all the SBIR SBIR money is in DoD, and then NIH is the next big chunk, and then you've got NASA and NSF, and then everybody else is like less than 10%. So that I have an online course. You've taken it, we worked through it, and this year, like this past summer,
that was a challenge.
Well, this past summer, I was actually asked to speak at a national conference on SBIR, and I was doing it's about 1 hour, it's a virtual conference, and I was doing my 1 hour thing, and I was working through it, and I thought, you know what, I have more I want to add for my entrepreneurs. So I actually ended up redoing my whole thing, and now it's a workshop, and it's a lot more interactive and a lot more action oriented and strategic. So it has a whole new name. I call it Creating a Winning SBIR Strategy, because I realized it wasn't just about understanding the review process. It was really understanding the big picture, understanding, these differences between the different programs. And here's DoD's view, here's NSF's view, and NIH and NSF, they'll say, bring your best idea. How do you want to change the world? Tell us. And if we like it and we think you got a chance, we'll fund you. Really different than DoD's like, man, we got to beat the bad guy. We got this problem to solve. Can you solve it? It's just a really different model. And then really understanding it, it really became clear to me that for an entrepreneur, you have to pick the SBIR or SBIR program really strategically, right? To fit your strategy, because you see companies, you meet entrepreneurs who get SBIR money, but it doesn't fit their strategy. And then it's kind of a dead end, and they've wasted a couple of years, and they've taken money, great, but then they don't have anything at the end that they can roll into their business and move their business forward. Do you know what I mean? I know you've seen it. And so I said, I've got to start there. Here's the big picture. Here's all the agencies. Here's how they're different. Here, and then I've got actions, right? Here's how you, the entrepreneur, think through your business and how these agencies might or might not fit. And here's your actions. And so we started there. We talk about the review process, but then I added something I never had before. I have a section on every single agency, and it's been pretty exciting actually this summer. So weirdly, COVID's been helpful for entrepreneurs. It's been weirdly helpful. I have a section on every major agency and a million little agencies. And because of COVID, because everything's gone virtual, in past years, there were conferences and they were all over the country, but everything was very ephemeral. You go to a conference, everybody talks and everybody goes away. Well, everything's been online, recorded, put down on writing or download. So I've gathered stuff all over. So every agency, I've got like a one-page summary, a tutorial, a 5-minute video pitch where the agency pitches you and says, this is what we want. This is what we're looking for. This is who we are. This is what we're about. I've had all these one-on-one conversations myself with agencies, and I've probed them. And then I've got like 4 of them up. I've got some in production. I'm summarizing, hey, here's where the agency is. Here's where their head is. Here's what they're caring about in the review process. There's been, there's things in the air, you know what I mean? How everybody says this. So if there's something that everybody says, I'll ask them about it. Hey, everybody says you expect this. Is that true? And sometimes it's true. And sometimes you're like, no, it's not that way anymore. And so I'm telling, I'm putting that in these videos. So all in one little place, if you're interested in that agency, boom, all that stuff is right there. In half an hour, an entrepreneur can really get a handle on an agency. Is this right for me? Is it worth my time? And then click, click, click. I can go to that agency, sign up on their mailing list, and start to really get into their solicitation, their topics. If I'm serious, I'm on my way. So anyway, so it's been exciting to me because I feel like it's gone from here's some information to you're going to move from I'm interested to I'm taking action. I'm on my way. So I'm kind of excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to read all that for sure.
It'll be rolled into your course in like a week.
And, and one of the things that you did to help me was it seemed like I had like a stop, and you did an interview with me about my idea. And that helped immensely for me to work out that idea.
Yeah, you had a really cool idea. Like I was like, oh my gosh, it's so great. It was because you were like, I'm not sure. And I was like, no, it's brilliant. That was fun. That was actually really fun.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, so you're 17 years old and you're a techie, and what made you break out of that mold and take a math and science, a STEM route?
So I was really a math girl, and my dad was a chemical engineer. When I was little, from the time I was like 5, people would say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I would say, I want to be a chemical engineer just like my dad. And that lasted until I was a junior in high school, and I took chemistry and I hated it. To this day, I still hate chemistry. And I really felt bad. I was, one semester in, and I said to my dad, I got to tell you something. He said, what, honey? And I said, Dad, I really hate chemistry. And he said, okay, honey, what do you want to do, And so I chose electrical engineering kind of by default, it wasn't chemistry, and I wasn't very good mechanically, and I just really didn't want to wear a hard hat in civil engineering. And, I tried this double E thing, and double E really is really math oriented. And my dad told me later he thought I'd really be a mathematician because I was really kind of naturally mathy. And so I did love double E. It really worked for me. But at the same time, I really like people, and I like to write and talk and stuff like that. So I just gravitated to the business side and enjoyed the business side of technology, and kind of always have. So then after I graduated, I went to New York and worked for the French telephone company on the marketing and sales side. And then I went to business school. So, but I will say, being a woman in tech, having an engineering degree, people don't give you crap. So it helps a lot.
Oh yeah,
It helps a lot. So, and it's been a wonderful career. It's great fun. And then my husband and I are business partners in entrepreneurship, and he's a computer scientist, and so it's very rewarding, very rewarding. And we love AI. Obviously, has emerged.
and making all that work's a feat in itself as well.
Yeah. Well, we like it, and I tell people it's not for everyone. To have one of our friends said, "You guys are like a little business in a marriage, you know," and it's not for everyone, but we do enjoy. We prefer it. We have worked during our marriage, obviously, for other people and with other people, but we prefer it. We really like to work together. We enjoy it. We complement each other. So
that's awesome. So, is there any challenges you feel like you've overcome on your way to success?
Every day, every day is a challenge. Well, okay, let's just be honest. The technology itself is really challenging, right? Technology changes so fast. And you know, having been in it since I was really very young, you know, I just think of the waves and waves of change. You know, so my kids when they were young would be like, "Mom, what was your favorite video game when you were little?" And I was like, "Okay, when I was like 14, my brother got a Nintendo thing, you know, and that was the first video game, right? When I was little, we got up and changed the TV channel on the 4 channels, right? So just the pace of change, I think, is so significant. When early in my career here in Utah, after I got my MBA and came here and worked for Megahertz, then was bought by US Robotics, and then 3Com, we were in mobile communications. And, you know, we created one of the very first mobile data systems. We were very early working on, sending some of the earliest mobile emails from taxis and stuff like that, you know, stuff that we take totally for granted. People just emailing and videoing and on the road, but that you know, just have this memory of the technical challenges behind all of that. So I think that's a fundamental challenge. It's the technology challenges are big, and then the waves of technology. It's hard to keep up. You gotta hustle every day.
Yeah, I find that difficult too. And I find, I write software, right? So the agile process where they don't really test it, their whole test is to have live users in production test their software. It's a foreign concept. One of their testers that is miserable every time they put out a new release, you know, and so yeah, for me, that's that new software, learning it. And, you know, even today, like they did a new Android version and they took away the screen capture and put it somewhere else. You know, I don't get it. I think they just like to mess with me.
Just making your life more difficult.
Okay, so you mentioned you have kids and a husband. So how do you manage your personal and professional life? Do you say, okay, every day at 5 o'clock, we're going to stop working?
That's hysterical, right? You are just kidding, right? Well, I will say this. I think for me, one of the advantages of entrepreneurship is it does give you more flexibility. Now, I will say, again, COVID obviously has been terrible, and the human toll is heartbreaking, right? Just truly heartbreaking. And the economic toll, and you know, it's so sobering. And I personally don't think we're done yet. But one thing I think may be an interesting positive outcome. First of all, I think that learning all to work remotely and to be patient with each other remotely, to be flexible. You know, I think there's some really good things that are coming out of what it means to work and to be productive. I think that is going to be tremendous for just the future of work. I actually think that's going to be really positive. And it's interesting because my father's a retired executive. He was a very senior executive for many years. And I said to him, you know, the vision of video conferencing, we were just on a family video conference, and our daughter's at college, and we were all on there, and we've been laughing because when he was at DuPont, a senior executive at DuPont, and he ran IT for them for a number of years when I was working for the French telephone company, and the whole vision back then, right, was so nascent, and we were just living it in our living room, live. But it's come so far that it's now so natural, and it's so much better than it was when it was first introduced, and it's so much equal, right? When everyone is remote, as opposed to being a remote person coming into a meeting that's a live meeting, there was very much an inequality of contribution. You always felt lesser when you were the remote person. Now everybody's remote, we're all equal. And it's really changed the dynamic. So I think that is really going to be a powerful, positive change. But as an entrepreneur, you can work when you are able to work, right? So when you had kids, you could be a parent, and both my husband and I did, we would joke, here, catch, you catch the kid, I'll work. Okay, I catch the kid, you work. And, you could do that. And then if that meant working at night or, whatever, you could do it. And there wasn't anybody to say, you have to be here now. You got to kind of control that. But I think that maybe that will be more widely spread now. I think that may emerge for a wider array of people. But certainly entrepreneurship gave that to us as parents. Now our kids are older, it's a little bit easier. But I think that, well, when we were venture backed, and we had a team of about 20 people before we sold that business. And we said, we wanted to accommodate, again, a wide array of people. So we set team time. We said team time is 10 to 3. And that's when we set meetings. That's when we're in person, 10 to 3. And if you want to come in at 6 in the morning, great, more power to you. And we had people who came in at 6, stayed till 3, went home. We had people who came in at 10 and stayed till 8, went home, but we didn't schedule meetings at 7 a.m. because I worked for bosses who were like, oh, I'm here at 7. You should all be here at 7, right? It was just so, right? So, and it was all men. I'm just going to say that, right? Who had, full-time spouses at home taking care of everything else, right? And totally insensitive to anyone. But, so we set this well of time, and everyone that was accommodating to everyone, and then let everybody flex around that, and in an attempt to be more accommodative. And so I just think that COVID has taught us that there are opportunities to be more accommodative. So anyway, so we have been flexible for a long time. Entrepreneurship gave us that. I'm hoping that we're going to learn that as a society, and it'll be better for everybody.
Yeah, I think it's progressed quite a bit, the technology and everything to do remote working. It's been a good thing, and it'll be a good thing in the environment as well, like air pollution. Although, it seems like the traffic's getting back busy again.
It does seem to be, doesn't it? But it doesn't seem to be as intense,
right?
That rush hour thing. So hopefully that'll be better.
So you're super motivated. You're just a fantastic mentor and such an inspiration to me. But I'm sure that there's some times where you experience lack of motivation, or maybe you don't. But how do you get through those times?
I call you. That's what I call you and go, Linda, how many things are you doing this week? So I can get myself motivated. The truth is everybody has times, right? When you're tired. In fact, it was interesting. Before COVID, I think I would say to myself sometimes, I think I'm burned out. I think I'm just feeling, and interestingly, COVID kind of reversed that for me. And I actually don't know why. Maybe it was just an actual crisis, kind of kicked me in the rear end and said, hey, this is an actual crisis right here. You gotta stop, pretending there's one or something. I don't know. I have to say that kind of maybe in April, May, people started to ask each other, well, how have things changed for you? Do you remember that period, after a couple of months, right? Everyone's like, how have things changed? And I thought about that, and I said, is it terrible when your answer is nothing's really changed for me? So my oldest daughter, instead of being in school in junior high, was at home. And our oldest daughter, who'd been up at the U and living in on campus housing, she came home. So the difference was both our girls were home, working remotely at home and doing school at home. Nothing else had changed because we were entrepreneurs and we mostly worked at home because we had our own business and we totally be flexible and we had resources and supercomputers in the basement. And so I said, is that bad? No, the only thing that changed was that we didn't go to events, we didn't go to the luncheons and, the get-togethers. That was pretty much it. And I thought, I guess that's bad. I don't know. But at the same time, it wasn't disruptive to us. We just kept doing our stuff and producing our output and,
Yeah, I have worked at home for like 15 years. So for me, it was like, oh, well, welcome to my world, and I remember that first year working at home and it was hard. All of a sudden you're like, oh, I'll just take 5 minutes and go to the laundry and, go and do this, whatever, take a walk. And pretty soon it's like 5 o'clock at night, nothing. So, but now it's just normal, and you plan your day, you've got, your time slicing, you've got your calendar,
Yeah, you get you and I did feel and do feel for particularly families with young kids and particularly in parts of the country, like here where we are, our school district, the kids are on a hybrid school system. So 2 days in class, 2 days remote learning, and then 1 day is a hybrid kind of day. And so there's some structure. It's not all 100% on the parents, the teacher, they're following the teacher's lead, they're in the school and then they do what the teacher told them to do the next day. And so it's working pretty well. I feel for parents who feel like their job is to be teaching their kids at home and they're all working full time. That I think would be extremely difficult. I have to say that. So I'm feeling for those parents around the country that have kind of feeling that burden. I don't quite know how they're doing it, to be really honest with you.
Maybe start drinking. Just kidding.
Yeah. Alcohol sales are up right now, so I think that's a real thing. I think you're right on top of it. But I think you're right. I think that you do have to learn to manage your time. But that is kind of entrepreneurship as well, right? Whether you're at home or in an office, no one's looking over your shoulder. You are the boss, and it is on you. And so I think that transition, I think that's one of the hearts of entrepreneurship, and I think a lot of government contracting, right? It is an entrepreneurial venture, right? You're going to go out and create a business, whether that's to get an SBIR or a traditional government contract, right? You have to have that drive, which includes just getting all that stuff done.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let's come back to your class that you're developing. When will that be ready? Can they see information about it now? Your workshop.
So it's actually live. So VentureWrench.com, and on our products page, and you'll have a link, I know, with it. Then go right to it, and they can buy it right now. And I'm just adding new, so every time they go in, there'll be more good stuff for them right now. And I also have a free giveaway, which will have the link, and it's my I think you've seen it. It's 40 ways to improve your SBIR proposal, and you've heard me tell this story. 1 year for NSF, I did like back-to-back reviews, and I was in a phase 2 review, and there were these good proposals, but the teams just did the stupidest mistakes. And I'm like, I got to write this down. I actually just opened a Gmail and started emailing myself, right? These like dumb mistakes. And I got to like 8, and then like the next review, I just kept adding on. I got to like 14. I got to 40 in this 1 year. Okay, 40 really dumb mistakes, unnecessary mistakes that cost teams the money. They didn't get funded 100% because of unnecessary mistakes. Not because the technology wasn't any good, not because of the team, because they just made dumb mistakes. And so I give that away to your listeners. things to avoid. And if you just avoid those 40 things, already you've set yourself apart, I promise you, in the SBIR competition. Just don't do those 40 things, and you really have set yourself definitely into the much more competitive things. So that we'll have that link for your listeners too. And then the course is live. And again, more stuff is coming in every day as I finish these videos, the one-on-ones, and every new resource I have. At the workshop, it's the workshop. And then they can also see other resources that we have, and I blog on my blog. It's all right there. So we'll have that available for them.
Oh, perfect. That sounds great. And also, do you have some books that you've read recently?
I've got a couple, and I went back kind of a year because I had to think of some really compelling stuff. And these are totally different. These are not really about business, but I'm going to show you this one. This book, Winners Take All. My husband bought this for me, and it's how the elite charade of changing the world. And this guy he's as you're going along, he's really talking about kind of the very elite leaders of the world, and he's quoting things they said and these elite gatherings, and you're thinking to yourself, did they really say that? How does he know that? Like, how did he get somebody to tell him that, right? And he's really talking about the movers and shakers, right? The Davos crowd, right? Those guys. And it's really, really changed my mindset. I will say it was a really profound book for me. How my husband found it, I have not the slightest idea. But very profound, really thinking about kind of power in the world. And I won't give it away, but you have to read to the end. And at the very end, he tells you how he knows all the things that happened in those meetings,
That sounds like a great book.
It was a great book, and the ending, don't skip to the end. You gotta read it in order. And when you read the end, you're like, oh, but very, very insightful. And he gave it to me like a year ago, Christmas, well before all of the current, social concerns that have arisen. And it really prepared me, you know what I mean? Like, it really was a primer for what's emerged, and really gave me a foundation to be thinking about these issues right now. So very much, very recommended.
Well, I'm going to order that.
Okay, I got to give you a second one, because you and I are kind of talkers, but I'm married to a listener, and I have a talker and a listener as children. So this book is called Quiet. And the subtitle is The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking.
Wow.
So this is so profound because, and the writer is herself an introvert, and it was profound both personally, right, kind of interpersonal relationships, but she writes about both sides, about both interpersonal relationships and then work relationships and leadership relationships, and how in organizations, right, if everybody's talking, right, the power in listening, and in the power in stopping those of us who are talkers and listening to the listeners, right? And that perspective that they bring. So, very kind of perspective changing.
Yeah, for sure. I find that I think by talking. So I'm thinking while I'm making a decision and shutting those kind of people right out of the picture, because they're like, well, my opinion doesn't matter. Well, I'm developing my opinion out loud.
Right. I think out loud. Exactly. I think exactly. Well, and my husband Brad and I, we would go to trade shows, and he would say, we had a strategy. He would say, you get them to talk and I will listen.
Oh, that's a good one.
And we realized that while I was getting them to talk, I was responding to them, but I was busy thinking about what they were saying to get them to keep talking. And he would hear different things. He could hear at a deeper level. He would say, did you hear them say this? And I'd be like, no. And so that was when I read this book, I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? It built on kind of that experience. So yeah, so it's a good one.
Oh, good. All right, so tell us how we get a hold of you again.
So VentureWrench.com is our website, and then community@VentureWrench.com is a great email to reach us, to reach me and our team. And then on social media, we are VentureWrench everywhere, except, and VentureWrench on LinkedIn. We have a VentureWrench page as well. And then I'm Nicole Toomey Davis on LinkedIn as well. And I'd love to connect on LinkedIn.
Perfect. And any goals for the next coming months?
Well, our social media has taken a little bit of a hit during COVID. You just can't keep everything going. So that's probably want to get back in outreach on social media. That's probably my biggest goal.
Oh, perfect. Well, it's been a pleasure. And again, listeners, if you want to reach out to Nicole, she's a fantastic lady, and I know you'll enjoy every moment of your conversation with her.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Linda. I loved it. It was great.
All right. Thank you too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.